A while ago, Sacred Union organized the webinar, Breath, Secret Key to Enhanced Living. These times of COVID pandemic has redirected our focus on our breathing abilities and is creating awareness about breathing exercises to keep our lungs strong and healthy. This has also set the stage to unravel the secret, or rather the simple truth, of how proper breathing can improve our lives drastically. The webinar has attempted to explain in simple layman language the underlying principles behind breathing from an engineering perspective, leading to the correct way of breathing to be followed by everyone. The entire content of this webinar is now broken down into a 4-part lecture series in presentation-based lecture mode for anyone to view and understand the individual concepts separately, and also a live demonstration to help us practice the correct way to breathe, which can then be easily adopted in our daily lives. An offering from Sacred Union. To follow our work, please subscribe and click the notification bell icon. We are also on various social media platforms and with a blog site, the links of which are given in the description box below.
Welcome to the first part of this series, where we try to see how breath can be a secret key to enhanced living. I, Sohom Chakrabarty, will take you through an engineer's perspective of breath and will reveal a few principles behind the operation of breathing and have an analogy with some engineering systems in order to understand how to work with breath in order to give us an improved sense of living. Humans are basically self-actuated automobiles. Whereas in an automobile, we need a person to be inside the car in order to drive it. The one who is operating the human automobile is already inside the human system. Also, in an automobile, it gets the energy to function, to work or to move from one place to another by burning the fuel, or we can say that there is a conversion of chemical energy to mechanical energy. And the same thing happens in a human being. There is a conversion of chemical energy from the food that we eat to the workable energy which we utilize to run the entire system as well as do all our work. Where does this energy conversion actually take place? So as you can see in the right, this complicated arrangement of pipes and vessels and maybe some electrical circuitry is also there. So this is called an engine of an automobile, and here is where the conversion of the chemical energy in the fuel to usable mechanical energy takes place. So though this is very complicated to see, however, the operating principle can be described by using this schematic over here, which we will discuss in a while. Similarly, for a human, there is also a complicated system of blood vessels and air sacs, which we call the lungs. And this lungs is where at least a very important part of the energy conversion takes place. And here also we can describe the functionality of the lungs by using a very simple schematic, and all of us know what is the function of the lungs. It is utilized to take the air in and give the air out from the system. Let us see in more details how the energy conversion is happening in the automobile engine as well as in the lungs or in the human system. This will reveal an analogy between the engine and the lungs. and how we as human automobiles are functioning. So here in the engine you can see that there are 4 distinct cycles which are like this. The first cycle is the suction or the intake, where air from outside is taken inside this engine. This is the cylinder of the engine, and this is the piston which is moving up and down. So when the piston moves down in this cycle, the air is coming inside the piston, and this is called the suction or the intake. In the next cycle, this air is pushed up and compressed, and this cycle is called compression. Only in the compressed air the fuel is released in the next cycle, and it is burnt, it is ignited. This is called the cycle of combustion. And when the combustion happens, the energy in the fuel gets released, and it is able to push the piston down and do some mechanical work. And in the next cycle, the last cycle, this piston has to move up again, and the toxic gases that has been produced due to combustion of the fuel are now released into the atmosphere, and this cycle is called the exhaust. Similar sort of thing is happening in the human being for conversion of energy, and the lungs are actively involved in the first and the last cycles, whereas the second and the third cycle are taking place not inside the lungs but everywhere within the human body. So let us see what are the cycles. The first cycle is the inhalation or the inspiration, where the air flows inside the lungs. The lungs are getting filled by the air. In the next cycle, this air has to be pushed to all the different cells of the body. Like in compression, the air is getting pushed. Here also the air has to be pushed to all the cells of the body so that the oxygen reaches all those cells. And this operation is called diffusion and circulation. Why? Because the oxygen is diffused inside the bloodstream in the lungs, and through the bloodstream is circulated all throughout the body. When it exactly reaches a particular cell, and this happens in all the cells of the human body, the oxygen is utilized to do the combustion action. In the human cells, there is some oxidation of molecules from food or other molecules inside the cell. There is an oxidation reaction that is happening with those molecules, and this is called the cellular respiration. This leads to the energy which is getting utilized by all the cells to carry out their individual work and give energy to the whole human system as a whole. The last stage is the stage of exhalation or expiration. What is this stage? During the cellular respiration, what happens? Carbon dioxide is taken out of the cells and other toxic gases also. So these are passed back to the lungs and has to be released from the human being. So the lungs are again taking part in the entire cycle to get these toxic gases out of the system, and this cycle is exhalation and expiration. What we know as breath is inhalation and exhalation. The other two cycles are happening inside our system without our control over it, so they are happening on their own. Inhalation and exhalation are the actions that we are doing while we are breathing. So here we are actively taking part in this cycle. As engineers, we are always interested in understanding how an engineering system can perform better and how we can reduce the damage to that particular system and reduce its losses. An automobile system is very well known to us, and the engine is something that the human civilization has invented, so it knows how it works in the best way. And our engineering principles tell us that if we have I can say how we can damage the engine, we know that, and the ways that we can damage the engine is by doing these operations, which are less suction and less exhaust. What will happen? Then less amount of air will be sucked in, so there will not be much air or much compressed air for the ignition to happen. The energy conversion will not be full or not be complete in this process. As well, when we are having less exhaust, less toxic air are coming out of the engine. And if we have rapid movements of this piston, we all know that if two mechanical objects are in contact and moving very rapidly against each other, there is a huge frictional loss in terms of heat. Also, there may be damage in terms of wear and tear of the two different systems, or of these two different mechanical objects. So as a whole, the life of the engine might be degraded. We also know that it is recommended that the automobile is driven at an optimal speed. Why so? Because at that particular speed we get a better fuel efficiency, and it also leads to a healthier engine with a longer lifespan. So if we are not running the automobile in that optimal speed, slowly there is some degradation that happens, that the rate of degradation is faster. If we apply the same principles to our lungs, then what can we infer? We can infer that if we are doing less inhalation and less exhalation with rapid movements, or that means rapid breathing, here movement means breathing, then we can lead to some damage to these lungs. Why less inhalation and less exhalation is damaging? Less inhalation will cause less amount of air to come inside the system, and hence the cells will not be able to respire or convert to oxidize their molecules and give out the energy to utilize by the cells. So less amount of energy will be there for the cells to utilize. Less exhalation will cause less amount of carbon dioxide and toxic gases to be coming out of the system. So you are storing carbon dioxide and toxic gases within your system and not letting that completely out. So that is more damaging perhaps. Rapid movements are causing more use of the muscles to expand and contract the lungs. So it causes some muscular stress. So if we are able to reduce the speed and give more time to exhalation and inhalation, then we can reach some optimal speed where we would have a better breathing efficiency. So now when we have slowed down on the speed of breathing, we can say that perhaps we take some work that we are doing. Now if we are able to do the same amount of work with less number of breaths, because we have slowed down on the breathing, we would have better breathing efficiency. This also leads to less damage of the lungs, because we are not doing the rapid movements. The muscular stress is much relieved, so we have healthier lungs, and that would also give rise to a longer lifespan of this engine, which is the lungs. If we have to achieve this optimal speed of operation of the lungs, then we have to know what exactly constitutes our breath. Only then we would be able to work with that breath in order to come towards something which is optimal, come towards a breathing cycle which we can say is optimal and leads to all these benefits that we have talked about and causes lesser damage. We normally think that breathing means inhalation and exhalation. That's all there is to breathing. But it is not so. Between inhalation and exhalation and exhalation and inhalation, we can actually retain the breath or hold it. We can hold our breath after inhalation. Also, we can hold ourselves after exhalation. We can give some gap before taking in the next breath. If you do it cautiously, if you do it consciously, you will be able to do that. You can try it out right at this moment. If you do it consciously, you will be able to give these times of holding, these periods of holding. We all know that we can give these periods of holding or retention, but normally we think this is not part of the breathing cycle. However, this is actually a part of the breathing cycle which we do not perform, because our tendency has been to breathe very rapidly, and we are always inhaling and exhaling in rapid cycles, in rapid frequency. What happens when you are doing this rapid breathing, which is, by the way, known as shallow breathing? When you are doing this breathing rapidly, inhalation, exhalation all the time, then we are also doing less amount of inhalation and exhalation. This gives rise to lesser breathing efficiency, greater muscular stress, as I already described, because the muscles are getting worked up too much, too often. There is also something called the oxidative stress which increases. What is oxidative stress? The oxygen inside our body, in addition to producing the energy to work, for our body cells to work, also gives rise to something called the free radicals, which are harmful to the cells. The free radicals are harmful to the cells. If we are taking breathing rapidly, then there is greater oxidative stress. This is found out by modern research, that we can cause greater oxidative stress by rapid breathing. Actually, the opposite is what is reported in the research. They have reported that if we take longer and slower breaths, we have lesser oxidative stress created inside our body. At the same time, I already mentioned that we have lesser toxic gases released from the system because we are doing less exhalation. We are not giving enough time for exhalation. So we are not able to release the entire carbon dioxide and toxic gases produced in our body to the environment. So these are all the problems or the damages that we cause to ourselves when we are breathing rapidly or we are having shallow breaths. The opposite of shallow breathing is deep breathing, which is also known as sometimes slow breathing. Here what we do, we prolong the duration of each breathing cycle. We prolong the duration of inhalation, exhalation, as well as we try to keep a duration of holding or retention. Now, when we first start with deep breathing, it may so happen that we are not able to give much time for this holding or retention, but gradually over time we can develop this habit of even introducing some retention or holding period in each of our breathing cycle. You can observe for yourself how you are breathing. Is it having some retention or holding period? Perhaps not. If it is not, perhaps you are breathing faster than normal, or there is a possibility that you can even make your breathing slower, even slower. And as we have come to the conclusion that if we are able to breathe slower and deeper, we would be achieving all these benefits which are listed down here. We would be having higher breathing efficiency, lesser oxidative stress, lesser muscular stress, and greater amount of toxic gas release we can do from our body, which of course will go on to improve our own health. Is it possible to change our breathing style? So suppose one identifies, yes, I am doing shallow breathing, and I now understands that they need to do deep breathing, but is it possible to change the breathing style? The answer is yes, because although we think that breathing is an involuntary action, because we never put our conscious mind towards breathing, or we are never doing breathing consciously, we have kept it aside as an involuntary action that the system will take care of itself. It is always breathing, so let us not think about it. But if you give your thought or give your mind to it, you can actually take control over your own breathing. So the breathing action is not entirely involuntary. There is a degree of voluntary control which we can exercise over our breath. Of course, you cannot stop your breath or make your inhalation exhalation periods longer and longer to any amount of time. It might not be possible, but there is a certain degree of voluntary control. You can extend your breathing cycles, you can shorten your breathing cycles. You can try it out right now. You will be able to have some control over your breath, the time spans of the breathing cycles. But that control we have to develop into a habit. We have to develop into a habit of breathing slow all throughout the day. Unless we do that, the benefits that we have talked about for deep breathing will not be able to harness. In further videos of this series, we will see exactly how we can do that, how we can develop that habit of deep breathing, how deep breathing can be achieved, and we will also try to explore other different facets, aspects of breathing from different other perspectives. So the takeaway from this particular video would be that we had been able to understand an analogy between the engine and the lungs, an automobile and a human being. If we look at the human being from that perspective, we can discover the damaging and preserving conditions for the lungs by looking at the damaging and preserving conditions of the engine. We also came to know about the cycles of breath and came to understand what would be an efficient and healthy way of breathing. So if you learned something from this video, now is the time to apply that knowledge to your life. Because wisdom is nothing but utilization of your knowledge to improve your lives. So be safe and be wise.
If you have any queries, please post them in the comment box below. We'll be glad to take up the questions in our future videos. If you are interested in attending live webinar sessions on discussions related to ancient Indian philosophies and their practicality in modern day lives, with which we'll be starting shortly, do not forget to register yourself in the registration link given in the description box. Please note that we are accepting registrations till 20th May only. If you like this video, hit the like button and do not forget to subscribe and share. To continue with this series, move on to the next video.